Greetings and welcome to the Pampering Myself podcast, an advocacy for self care. We'll laugh, we'll cry, and most importantly, we'll learn that you can't pour from an empty cup. You'll hear stories, interviews, and conversations which will empower you in living your best life. Good morning, podcast listeners, and welcome to another episode of Pampering Myself. Today, I thought it would be interesting to talk about the COVID-19 once again, especially since we're coming out of hibernation, I guess you can say, and as more states are opening up. Here in the state of Michigan, we're still, I believe, at a level 4, or however they're classifying it, meaning that things have slowed down, and that's due to the increase in other states. And I know there are a lot of people who have been against Governor Whitmer's holding back on certain things such as gyms and barbershops and beauty salons. And I know for myself, I was truly excited when she opened up the salons because I felt like I lost 20 pounds just getting a haircut. I wish it was that easy. But today, my guest, Michele, and I are going to talk about some of the things that we may have experienced through the COVID-19 and what the future might look like, and things that are going to change or have changed. In other words, we'll classify as my new normal or our new normal. So, Michele, welcome to the show.
Hello, how are you?
Doing pretty good. So I know you have had a lot of challenges during this COVID-19. Just give us an insight on just a few of those that you might be willing to share.
Okay, my daughter had it, and she had just started a new job in February. She came down with this COVID in March. She went back to work at home only in June, but there are other issues that have come about from the COVID where she's having these headaches, and they found some fluid on the brain and things like that. So she's got to go for other treatment. And then my mother had to go into hospice because she decided she doesn't want to eat, and she has dementia, and she's in a nursing home. And the nursing homes are locked down. The people can't go see them, which is for their protection as well as ours, because the COVID is running rapid at the nursing home, even though she doesn't have it. So they're depressed, and they said she doesn't have it, but she's depressed, and this is why she doesn't want to eat. And she gets mad when we do FaceTime or dual time because that's not good enough. She wants to see and touch me. And then my husband has, diabetes, and then the arteries and the heart and all those issues. So I have to be careful with him because it's beginning to act up. So you can't go in the hospital because you're scared that you're going to get it. You have to do the in and out in the clinics or out off-site. That's what they call them, off-site locations, where they open up the veins and the arteries and stuff like that. And you have to be careful. You can't go around people. We're at that age group where we didn't have it that we know of. But when people are testing you, if you're not in the midst of it right then and there, your tests come back either negative, positive, or they don't know. And it's the not knowing, especially when you watch somebody go through this. And it seems like I'm the only one walking around. And there are days when I can just scream. I'm supposed to have all the answers, and I'm standing up for everybody, and I'm the strong person. And when I go to bed, I just pass out. I don't know what time it is, or when I wake up, I don't know what day it is, and I have to talk to myself, and I always have to have the phone on in case the hospital my daughter calls, and which is an all-night adventure. And that's going to be something that we have to talk about on another day, because that in itself is an experience that nobody wants to go through once, let alone twice. And then, in case the nursing home calls, which they do, where my mom is acting up because she's mad at the world, and just different things like that.
I know.
So
And
it's a challenge.
knowing that you had really had a lot on your plate before all of this, and speaking of those individual family members as well, because your husband's been sick for a while. Uh,
Hmm.
your mother, you were going back and forth with her until you all got her to move out of her apartment, uh,
Right,
and then put her in the nursing home for her own health, and then your daughter living some distance away,
right,
and your grandson trying to help them whenever you could. So knowing that this has been going on for like the past couple of years, actually, COVID just put the icing on the cake for you as far as how you're stretched. So
right.
what do you do? I mean, how are you able to stay sane at this time, and what coping tools do you use to handle all of the stress?
Well, usually with my daughter, I would be up all night, and I watched Chris Como, and I read as much as I could about it, and different other people that we know have had it, and they would tell you what to look forward to, not in the sense of looking forward to something that you'll know
Right.
what's coming. And so when she would call at night, because during the day, as bad as it is during the day, at night is when the monsters come out. And it's hard to breathe. It's hard to do this. You got to remember to tell the person, stay on their side, stay on your stomach, do not sleep on your back, take the treatment, do this, do that. And there are points in their lives where they're depressed and they just want to give up. And you have to be there to tell them, no, you cannot give up. You cannot afford to give up. And then you're trying to deal with the emotions of your extended family, and then dealing with my husband, and I've been told, I've been kind of short with him because it's like, look, somebody, please. And he had a surgery in 16. I had surgery in 17. He had surgery in 18. 19 was when, things started getting a little rocky because I thought maybe we'll have a smooth year. But by December of 19, all the way through, we have been to funerals. Well, virtual funerals, because we
Right.
won't go to funerals. And people dying every single month from December until now. People have died and people have gotten sick. And and so now it's okay, what are we gonna do? And then it gets to the point where a lot of people say, I'm tired. I'm not having this anymore. So I'll go to bed and stay in the bed. I stayed in the bed, I don't know how many days. I get up, do what I have to do, and go back to bed. Get up, do what I have to do, and go back to bed. And when I say do what I have to do, I mean like wash up and stuff like that. And I have a whole house that I could have cleaned, I could have thrown out things, I could have painted, and you just don't care. You can't do it. Your body tells you can't do it. And a couple of times, I thought my heart was going to give out because, I felt that weight. And I kept saying, all right, you got to get it together. And then I would talk to people who are going through the same thing I'm going through. And people don't want to tell you that they have had it until you bring it up. And then they're willing to tell you what they went through. And it's more or less, if I tell somebody I have it, people won't want to talk to me. That's what I'm thinking,
Mm.
because once you open the door, people will tell you things. But up until then, it's like a big secret. And, and I'm one of those like, hey, I'll put it out there.
Right.
I have to vent. I have to let it out. I can't keep it to myself. And you can't tell like my husband, because with his condition, that's all I need. Him to, because he's already emotional and upset. And and then my son, you can only tell him so much because he keeps everything in. And I'm like, no, I can't put that on him. So, we would go through all these things. And then when you think, okay, we're going to have a good day, a day 14 and don't believe that on the 14th day, blah, 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 blah. That does not hold truth for everybody. Like I said, she started in March and here it is June, and she doesn't have the COVID symptoms, but you have this after effect.
Right.
And then the doctors are trying to figure out, wow, what is it? We don't know. And they send you home because she got her bill the other day, and then I said, if the disease doesn't kill you, that medical bill will. And she spent the night, and $16,000 to spend the night in the hospital.
Wow.
And that's only the hospital. That's not including all the doctors and everybody
Right.
else. And it's like, and then you weren't working either. And so then I'm like, okay. And so then I had to go back to bed on that note. But you sit there and you think, what in the world is going on? And when you talk to people and then other people tell you, like, so and so had it too. And it was like, oh, it's like you're in a club that you really don't want to be in, but
Right.
you share information. And the doctors are telling everybody, because these doctors are guessing unless you're really down and out. And I don't think you had it. Yeah, because I had this, and this, and that's not the flu. And
We had went on a cruise last July, and when we came back from the cruise about a week later, it might not have been a week, my husband had got sick, and he was sick for a good 2 weeks, and we really didn't know what he had, any reason for it. And of course, he wouldn't go to the doctor. I don't think he went till it was over with, but it was a good 2 weeks. Fortunately, I didn't catch anything. But we were wondering when all of this came about, was there really something out there before, they say in January, before January?
Yes. I read where it was in the United States in 2019. They just wouldn't tell it.
Right.
And I remember in February, I was there with my daughter, my grandson, and I brought him down here for some odd reason. And he had what I thought was strep throat once again. So I was taking him to his doctor. And by him being up under me, I was feeling bad. And I'm like, oh, Lord. So we go to the doctor, and the doctor was testing him. And, usually when they check you, they do the little test for the strep throat. And then he was testing for the flu. And I had never seen them swab noses or their mouths for the flu before, ever. And they did all this, and we had masks on because I was trying to protect everybody from catching this strep throat. And the doctor said everybody that had come into his office that day had the same condition. The emergency rooms at Children had 3-hour backup. Emergency room at Beaumont had a 4-hour backup, and I wasn't going to anybody else. That was it. And so then, he just had the flu. He didn't have hepatitis A, B, or C, and all that stuff. They tested for all of that. But nobody said the word COVID back then. And so we had that. And just as he got sick, which I had never seen him like that, he was out of school for a week, he got better. Well, I'm going kind of back and forth. It's like, this is the worst flu I ever had. And I had the flu shot. But it wasn't as bad as what the real virus was. And, so you drink and eat everything that you're supposed to eat, take your vitamins and all that sort of thing. And I had to go to the dentist. He had to go to the dentist. And we all did this by March 10th. And then here it comes on March 10th. They're talking about they're shutting down everything because of the corona. Like, excuse me? I've been to the dentist and my eyes were bothering me, and I'm saying, I am going blind. And then later on, they say, don't touch your eyes. Don't do something to your ears. Don't touch your nose. Well, your nose and your mouth will cover. Don't do this. Don't do that. Wear long sleeves. Don't wear lotion. I'm like, well, you could have said that before. And I keep telling people, I know that's what was going on, but nobody will say it. And different people I talked to, they were doing the same thing in December and January and February. And I remember burying my best friend in February from diabetes. And I said later on, maybe a month ago, she's the lucky one. She doesn't have to endure this on top of what she had because she suffered with that diabetes. And I'm like,
Right.
holy moly. And you're thinking, I'm doing all this. You're scared to get tested because my daughter's been tested 3 times and they can't determine if she had it or not. And they say if you don't get tested right in the middle of having it, they really can't tell. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And they won't test the kids because they don't want to put them through that. Well, he was her essential caregiver, my grandson, and
Uh-huh.
I have to give it to him. He was outstanding. He did what adults would do. He made sure that she did this, made sure that happened, make sure. And that was a lot to put on a kid.
Right. Because he's how
And
old?
10.
10.
And he has grown up more
Yeah.
than
He's
he
14.
had. And then like there were a couple times he had a meltdown and he was entitled. You know,
Poor
you have
thing.
adults who have
Right.
meltdowns, and here you have this kid and he's scared to death. And so then when she would go through these things sometimes of not wanting to do, he would get on the phone and sound the alarm. He knew how to do conference calls with the family and he called everybody. Mommy won't do. And then we said, okay, get off the phone, and we let her have it. And
Mhm.
every piece of information I could get my hands on, I read. Information that my brother had, he passed it on, and we couldn't go see them. So we went shopping and would take the groceries and leave them at the front door while they're there, so they pick them up so that the neighbors won't take them.
Right.
And we did runs like that, and all the time. Spent a lot of money doing that
Yeah.
because
Grocery stores got rich.
yeah, they did. And the medicine, you had to ship medicine because you couldn't find it here, you couldn't find it there. And there's still some things that you still can't find. And if you ship it well, this is for a certain segment of society, like, excuse me.
Right.
And, and that makes you mad. But then, like, she now says there are days she is so tired. And I said, they said you're going to be like that for a year. You can do a little something and then you're just exhausted. And this is some of the after effects. And going to work, she's fortunate where they letting her work from home. And they were telling her to stop worrying about her job. I just started. If
Yeah.
anybody's going to go, it's going
Yeah.
to be
It's
me.
kind of natural to worry.
And they told her, don't worry. They were holding her position, which they did. And even though she doesn't feel good at times and she has these headaches, she works through it. And they're working with her because she's dedicated and she is a good worker.
Mhm.
And then during this time, she's going to school. And I'm like, how much more of this you gonna do? And the whole time she was in this semester, she was under that COVID, and she had a 94 average out of a class. And she was kind of upset. I said, are you crazy? And she said, I was trying to be on the chancellor's list. I said, well, aren't you on the dean's list? And she said, yeah, but I'm trying to get to the chancellor's list. And I just threw my hands up. I said, you know what, Lord, take care of this child. And I said, I'm glad to see you made it through. And her
Right.
professor knew, and the professor worked with her, and she did all the work. And she said, I'm tired. I'm really, really tired. And I look at people when I go out, and which isn't much, because I don't know where you've been. I don't know how concerned you are about this. And if you don't have on a mask, you don't come near me. And I noticed the one time I went into the store, Family Dollar, and people who didn't have on a mask tried to come and get close to you. And I would take the buggy and ram it into them. Back off.
I
No,
know that's right.
You can't come near me. And I mean, I rammed that buggy right into them. Back off.
That's
And
right.
they would
I go in
smile.
here with gloves and
Mhm.
masks.
And I'm not going to use my cane to do them because I need a cane. So I take the buggy. And then, and people that want to get closer, you better back up off of me. And people want to get smart, and you'd be surprised knowing your life is at stake, how
Mm-hmm.
low down and nasty you can be. Bump this
Right.
crap.
Oh,
Back
that's
up off of me. And then the store people have to come in and all that kind of carrying on. But the stress of it all, it wasn't until this is June, the 1st of June is the first time I had my husband go bring us a carry out from a grilled chicken salad from the Coney Island place.
Uh-huh.
Because all before I said, I don't know anything about those people who are cooking the food.
I know
I'm
that's
not doing
how
this.
we
I'm
were
not doing
too,
that.
right? Afraid to
And
eat.
and he said, "You are paranoid." I said, "You better believe it."
Mm-hmm.
And
I was
then
too.
and going up to get it, to take it out of a place, that is not acceptable. It has to be drive through. To
Uh,
go to a restaurant, I don't know if I'll ever go in a restaurant again, because there are different people that we know, and they're chemists and everything, and they're saying this may go until 2022
wow.
if we have a vaccine. That's a big if.
Yeah.
And like Michigan, the governor, I know I'm getting off track, but the governor, she did what she had to do to protect the
Oh,
people. And
yes,
these
and I agree
and,
with her.
and these people are fighting her tooth and nail. What is wrong with you? She's trying to protect your stupid behinds,
Mm-hmm.
and so you don't contaminate folks. Well, some of these people who are hard headed did what they did, and now they're sick.
Right.
Oh,
But I
this
think
is
in all fairness, it's more so the business owners. I
mm-hmm,
get it. I get it that you want to open back up because that's your livelihood. I'm one of the
right.
fortunate ones as well who were able to work from home.
Mm-hmm,
My husband's laid off.
mm-hmm,
Hopefully, he'll go back to work. We do have a
mm-hmm.
plan B, survival, but there are a lot of people who don't, and particularly
Right.
business owners. But here's my thing about that. Regardless of whether they open back up or not, it will still depend upon whether people like you or me, like you said, you're not going back in a restaurant to sit down again. And quite frankly, neither am I. It'll be some time before I go sit in a restaurant to actually eat. I did pick up an order from Fridays a week or two ago and walked in there, and there was no one sitting down, even though they had open dining. And that's
Mm-hmm.
because people are still afraid. So the restaurants are opening, and some of them are still going to remain empty.
But think about when we were growing up. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, we did not go out to eat.
Right. We
If
didn't do
we
that.
going out to eat meant getting in the car
Right.
and going to Big Boys and having them bring the hamburgers to the car, that was going out to eat. And we thought we were the cat's meow to do that. But to go inside a restaurant, no.
No. I did it
And
when I got to be a teenager, but not in dating,
right,
not as a
right,
kid. No.
right. And so we survived, and we ate the foods that we were used to eating, and we really didn't get sick. And all this other stuff, like you're catching everything because of the way they process the food, the way they have, the what am I saying?
You don't even see hair nets anymore.
No,
Things like that that used to be part of what you had to do when you handle food handler.
right.
I don't even know if that's still a thing that they do now. But, people have their hair, they talk all over your food. So, for yourself,
He's like, ugh.
when you talk, spit may come out. And so they do this all over your food. They don't wear the gloves. So things have changed. And a lot of this
Yeah.
is
And
all
some
part
people
of
are
it.
just plain nasty. And
Yeah,
I don't want you touching my food. And then you go handle the money. Hold it.
right.
Stop. 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 And and it's those things. So to tell me that, okay, you going out to eat? No, I remember how we didn't eat, and we were much better off, because
Right.
I remember my grandparents and saying, I wonder if they wash their hands. I wonder if they spit in the food, because back then that was a thing. I wonder if they did this. And the rule of thumb was if somebody fixed your food and it wasn't the way it was supposed to be, never complain and never send it back. Just say thank you
Right.
and pay the bill and leave. So when you hear reports about kids doing all these crazy things, you're like, no, I'll just soon fix it myself. And because you know what you are and what you're not going to do. And then uh, the with the governor, getting back to her, and some of these people on the other side of the state, you know, they're dying because they can't go to the bar. They're dying because they can't do this. They're dying because so and so. So, are you really that stupid? But I looked at the Jewish people and how they had to go into hiding for 3 years or more to keep from being murdered. Now, if they can do that, we can do a few months to stay alive.
It's all for sake of health, and not only for yourself but for others.
And then when I look at, okay, what do I see as far as the pandemic and the vision? I cannot believe how ignorant some people are. And what I'm saying is, I was reading an article, and the kids were in East Lansing, and they went to the bar and all that sort of thing, and they went home to their communities. And we're talking about Grosse Pointe and all the affluent communities. And this one mother was just amazed that the virus would attack the affluent community. Like, really? And I'm like, no, that did not roll out of your mouth.
Yeah.
And serious. They thought that it was going to stay in the neighborhoods where people weren't affluent. And okay, no big deal. Like, you're crazy. This is a pandemic. It's global.
Right.
And it's going around and around and around. And somebody created something they had no business creating, and they don't know what to do. And then I think of this pandemic, because I've been thinking a lot since I'm sitting up in this house, and I think about all the things that as a country we used to go to other countries and do a napalm in Vietnam. We did all that chemical warfare in all these other countries when we were at war, and those people suffered. The Vietnam vets came back with Agent Orange.
Right.
There's nothing they could do, and a lot of them died. And all this sort of thing. And so now another country decided they got tired of us and our foolishness, so they did it to us. Now we don't know how could they do such a thing. Well, excuse me. Think about what has gone on throughout history.
Yeah.
And I just talk about Vietnam because that's where I come in. But you talk about World War I and World War II, they did the same doggone thing. And, trying to conquer somebody. And they have these zones where, okay, if we're in this zone, the chemicals won't go over there. How would you know that? Who says that?
It's really interesting because I remember when they talked about the avian flu and a whole bunch of all those other things.
SARS.
Yeah, they did manage to contain them where they really did not affect the United States in this manner. As a matter of fact, nothing has really affected the United States since the virus back in 1918, I think it was.
Right.
So is it because they tried to hide it and it got in and just destroyed, self-destruct? Or was it, that it got past them unknowingly?
I don't think it got past them. I think they didn't want to believe it because they were on a different page and because they were told. Right. And if they had done something then like they did back when SARS and H1N1 and all that, where they got on it and everybody worked together, they were able to, and Ebola, they were able to contain it. But with this, no, we're better than everybody. We don't need to be with you. And we're just going to pretend it doesn't exist. and it got out of control. And even now, if you listen, nope, we're doing just fine. All these people are dying is not a hoax. All these people are dying is not a conspiracy theory. This is reality. And we still want to pretend there's nothing wrong. And it's like, wake up.
Those numbers have convinced me that something's wrong. Those numbers are frightening.
Right.
Both sets of numbers, because the numbers where they even say that the people have been cured or survived it, when you add those numbers onto the numbers of the people who unfortunately die from it, totally, that is a huge amount of people.
And they also said, which they don't like to talk about, just because you had it and you survived it, you can get it again. And you probably will have it worse because you're already weak and you won't be able to fight like you did the first time. Now, if you were drained from the first time, you're in trouble the second time.
Yeah.
And then, you have the medical community, they're not on the same page. No this, no it's that. We're going to treat it like this. No, we're going to do that. And doctors who think outside the box and come, let's try this because nothing else is working. And so this is working. So they're doing these things. And you have to look at the person's history too. And most people are not perfect. They have something wrong with them. Like my daughter has asthma. Well, you think I wasn't scared? And then, okay, you got asthma. And then you got to worry about the scarring of your lungs, of all things. Then you have to worry about this. And it's like, and one man said, is this the end of the world? And if it is, let's get it over with.
My question, my next question to you, basically, do we think when we look at from a biblical sense and we talk about all the things that have happened in history, do you think, I know we like to think the government has something to do with it, or the virus, came in and attacked us or whatever, but from a spiritual point of view, do you think this is just not a way that we're being awakened spiritually? So many things have gone on in this world that are wrong and needed to be right. Is this a time that we ought to be focusing on salvation?
My husband believes revelation has come, and he says it every day, several times a day. And I told him, why are you reading Revelation? I think it's the book of Amos, I think it is. You better read both of them because it goes hand in hand. But I always, I listen, to my minister, and God is in control.
Yes.
And for better or for worse, we have to trust him and believe in him. And he's trying, he tried to give us a chance to right our wrongs. And instead of righting our wrongs, we have gotten worse. And he says, since I didn't get your attention this way, I'm going to get your attention this way. And people are not paying attention to what he's doing. Because you got a lot of people that don't believe in him. And they still go off on the deep end on this conspiracy theory. And all these people who start these theories, I believe there's a special punishment you're going to have. And I keep saying, okay, God has got this. He knows what's going on. You have to keep doing the right that you do. You have to keep the faith and let him handle this. And as hard as it is, I still tell myself every day, he's got this. He's in control. And if this is the end of the world, now, you're supposed to be serious. I told my husband, if this is the end of the world, then doggone it, hurry up and do it before we pay all our bills off, okay?
Well,
I don't want to
Michelle, I
leave
think
here
it
with
don't
zero
matter
debt.
whether, I don't think that really matters whether you have your bills paid off or not, if it is the
When
end.
when I leave here, I want to owe them like, yeah, I didn't pay you. Guess what? And my husband said, "You're really cracking up." And I said, "Well, I gotta lighten it up because this is really sad.
And
To go through all this, and this is it. This is
and
the way
you're
we
right.
doing."
You're
And so,
right.
and I always say that. And my brother said, "Girl, you crazy." And my daughter, you said, "Mommy, I love you, but I got to get off the phone." And my son just like, "Well, all righty then." And
That's a good one, Michelle. You want to go out on all the people.
yeah, I
Well,
want
if
to
they
owe
going
you
to,
some
it won't
money.
matter. They won't know.
Well, I'll have the satisfaction. Didn't pay. You didn't take everything I had. I still owe you some money. Too bad, so sad. And that's the way, I have to lighten it up because
Yes.
like if you
Yes.
think of like what's that, the Ten Commandments.
Uh-huh.
I watch that every year. And the plague that came around and it took the people.
Right.
This
Because
is
think of
what
it
I
this
think of this. This is
right.
what I think. The plague is coming around, taking
Yes.
folks. And there's nothing
And
you
what
can
about the
do about it.
sand? What about the sand now that's coming in the United States?
Oh my God. Since when did sand from Africa come to visit us?
You see
I'm
what
like,
I'm
what
saying?
the devil?
We
What
went,
the devil?
we went from the COVID-19, then we
The
ran into the
sand.
Black Lives Matter movement with all of
Mm-hmm.
that uprising, and now here
Mm-hmm.
comes the sand.
And I'm like, and my niece said, well, because it's coming from so far, it can't be as bad as the sandstorms in Arizona when they lived in Arizona. Because she was talking about how they had to tape up everything, and because the sand would seep in wherever there's a crack,
Right.
and you just buckle down. And she said, it's unbelievable. And she said, this can't be as bad as that because it has to travel so far. And I'm thinking, if God is doing this,
Yeah,
that sand can come down on us like rain.
that's
And
it.
I noticed, and first they said the rain was good. Now they said the rain isn't. And then they said the crops. And then they talk about that. And the last storm we had, which was this weekend, Thursday or Friday, and my husband looks at me because I'll say stuff. And I said, pay attention. Usually when we have a thunderstorm, you have your rain and it'll thunder and then it'll lightning and then it'll rain, you know, like that. This time when it rained, I mean, that rain was coming down and that thunder was continuous throughout the entire time it rained. And the lightning was like a strobe light the entire time it was storming. And my husband said, you heard all that? I said, I most certainly did. I stayed awake for the whole thing because I never heard thunder continuously thundering, no break, no let up. And when the thunder stopped, the lightning stopped, and the rain stopped. And I said, oh boy. And he just looked at me. He said, you stayed awake? I said, that's why I'm so tired because I was awake all night. And I said, I know I'm not stressing. I'm paying attention. And being locked up like this, which doesn't bother me because I'm a homebody anyway. Um, I'm paying attention more and more to what's going on around, and I worry about everybody who was protesting. I know why people were protesting. I don't
Right.
have a problem with that. But what I worry about, okay, everybody was perspiring. Most people had on masks. You had some people who didn't, but there was no social distancing.
Right.
And I'm like, you're gonna kill a whole generation in this nation because of nonsense. And some people still trying to keep it going. I mean, the nonsense, not the protesting, but the nonsense. And like, when is enough going to be enough? And I understand why people did this. And the younger generation is not like our generation. They say, if I'm going to die from COVID to survive to being mistreated, brutalized, and shot, then I'd rather die. And they're not playing and they're not backing up. And I said, this is a different group. And I never thought Like when we would go around the city or to different places, there was so-and-so statue. Well, I didn't like them anyway, so I never paid them any attention. But I was listening to them say to walk past these statues every day, knowing what they stood for, it was just like suffocating some of these folks. And I never looked at it like that, but I get it, okay. And then it's like, okay, we're going to rename everything. And the one thing I was glad about was Kobo. I'm like, I'm so sick of him. And when they changed the name, it's about doggone time. But you start thinking about all the things, and then you go back and start reading history about this person, this person, this. I say, okay, who's left? And they're going to have to rename it. And the lynchings that have started again and setting people on fire with gasoline because you don't like them because they're mixed. That's none of your business. And people just walking up to people saying the N word because they think they can, because somebody told them you can all of a sudden. And when you get your teeth knocked out, then you want to cry. Don't cry.
I have one final question before we end. And it's real of COVID-19 and actually adding into it the Black Lives Matter movement from the time that we had to be, the stay-at-home order was given in March up until today, I say, where we now had a freedom to move around and get out somewhat. What would be the one thing that you would say that is a positive about this whole time that we've been confined and had to sit still?
Okay, let me know if I'm on the right track. For as far as the positive, the one positive, it's it's the culture being understood, the history being understood and researched and interpreted and explained to the younger generation. They're beginning to listen to what the older generation has been trying to tell them, and they're doing the research and understanding why we did what we did. And they're now taking an interest in our history. Um, and I'm just talking about the Black Lives Matter. It seems like
Right. And I totally agree with you. Yes.
the other cultures, the non-white cultures, they're beginning to do the same. But the Black Lives Matter, um, they're doing it because I can remember a time when nobody wanted to hear it. It was too depressing. They were too busy doing foolish stuff. Now it's important. And
right.
This pandemic has brought it, it has tied in the differences in how people are treated legally, how people are treated socially, how people are treated medically, and just in general. And it makes a difference. It's important, and they're not putting up to it, and they're demanding respect, and they're going to get it one way or the other. And they're bringing all the people that we thought were heroes to light, and they're seeing what the media and the powers to be at that time painted them as negative individuals, like Fred Hampton and Huey Newton had a PhD, and what they were doing, trying to bring the people along. Understand, you have to feed people, you have to house people, you have to do this, do this, do this. If you want people to act a certain way, you treat them like dirt, and they're going to retaliate. And I noticed with this, and it's all because with the pandemic, nobody has time to be out there in the street. Everybody has to sit down and focus.
You're right. And I think the timing of the two events, first the stay-at-home order, where I think that was a time of focus
Right.
for people to focus on themselves, on their families.
Right.
Unfortunately, it will bring bring some families together, and yet it will tear some families apart because of
Right.
the whole idea of being confined. But that may not be a bad thing because it just might be the straw that broke the camel's back in those
Right.
scenarios. And then the children, parents realizing what it takes to educate their kids in these
Right.
schools. So they're getting
Right.
rid of that. Some of them are not receptive to it, and some of them welcome it with open arms. But either way, they now understand what teachers have to go through to get their children to learn. Uh,
And during this, I've heard more and more people saying teachers don't get paid enough. I
right,
could never be a teacher, and like their one kid or two kids at home are a pistol. Just think of this poor teacher that has 20 and 30 kids, you
right,
know, and some of them like, you need a raise, and it's making parents respect the teachers the way our parents used to respect teachers. There was a generation, I don't know what happened, they didn't respect anybody. But they're beginning like, wait a minute, these people work hard for their money.
right.
And and the teacher's like, oh, you feel me now? And they
Yeah,
have to buy supplies for these kids because I know I've seen many a teacher buy supplies for the kids because the powers to be wanted to hoard all the money. And
hmm,
then when you want to know why these kids are slow or backwards or whatever, because they didn't have the tools. But then on the other hand, back in the day, kids didn't have the tools. They had a pencil and a notepad or
that's right.
whatever, and they were able to get what they had to get. They
That's
had the
right.
bare necessities, and they had one room classrooms, and you had all 8 grades in the one room. And so there's a disconnect somewhere where if they could do that then, how come they couldn't continue now? And some of the teachers have to learn, okay, well, we weeding out the bad teachers because some of these teachers doing this, they have been outstanding. They have taken over their kids. They've had to act as counselors because these kids were going through things, and the kids, a lot of them like learning like this. They don't want to go back to a building and be bothered with the nonsense. My
Right.
grandson says, I like homeschooling. I don't have to be bothered with the foolishness.
But there was before this pandemic, it was advertised on television, uh, kindergarten through 12th grade, where you could do homeschooling. The only thing I have against homeschooling is socialization. I
Right,
think that these kids already lose a lot of that when it comes to socialization because of social
right,
media, because of the technology, that
right,
they have available to them, that they don't really know how to interact either with other kids or in a social environment. So that would be
right.
the only drawback to that. And maybe if they were
Mm.
to participate in either some activities or a sporting event or something outside of the home on a regular basis, then that would probably help. One of the ladies in my Toastmasters club, who is in her 40s, mid to late 40s, was homeschooled. And she talked about the benefits and some of the pros. And that was one of them, the social skills that really
Mm.
she lacked growing up. So she more or less catered to or was social with animals because they
Mm-hmm.
had horses and they had dogs and things like that. And that's how those are the things that she interact with. And so she wasn't around a lot of people. And you can really tell that she was lacking that skill set because of it. So it has its
Well,
pros and cons, but there's ways to getting around it.
but because of the pandemic, the kids can't be
Right.
around everybody. So what are they going to do? Because if they're going to play sports,
Yeah, well, we're
then
forced into it now.
right. So, and like they had his teacher had them doing activities where they were all, they were Zoomed in and they
Right.
were all participating, and they had to run around the house and collect different things and bring it back and all that sort of thing. And they enjoyed that, and they compared certain articles that they had, and she tied it all in together. And he seemed to be more relaxed, because he was in fourth grade, was really a tough year, because that's when the little boys start trying to assert themselves and the bullies come out and all this kind of carrying on. And he had to prove that, I'm not like you, but I'm not going to let you push me over either. And I'm like, oh boy. And then you see different personalities come forth. But because of this COVID, at first it was hard, but then it's like, I like this, But then on the other hand, when they get ready to go for a job, he was used to going to school in his pajamas, right on. And, and so you got to go to work. You can't wear pajamas, honey. You got to dress and sort of thing. So it's like, how do you balance? But he, and then his mom, being the kind of mom she is, she made him do other things and to read about certain things and sort that sort of thing, and make him aware of what's going on because of her situation. And sometimes he would bring stuff up and not knowing how she would respond and not trying to tell too much, he would ask me. And I would say to him, sweetheart, I don't know. And Mr. Intelligent here, Grandma, is it that you really don't know or you really don't want to answer? And I said, sweetheart, I don't know. And your mother is the only one who has that answer. He said, uh-huh. And then when he asked about, and then the positive thing, kids, these younger kids, you think don't pay attention, they're like sponges. Right. And he asked me about Corona and the virus and all that sort of thing. And I said, honey, I can't tell you everything. And he said, Grandma, as much as you watch the news and as much as you research everything you can, you're going to tell me you don't know. And I said, and I'm sticking to it. You have to ask your mother. He said, I got it. So, you think you sheltering these kids, and these kids are learning by watching other people. And they're not the typical, shove them in the corner and pray for the best. These are different kids. And this is what one of the positive things I think, these kids are going to be aware and be prepared, because they're getting ready to deal with something that nobody has ever had to deal with. And I think it's for the best. Right. Plus, they have to know their culture, because like I have always told him, you have to know where you came from to know why you're where you are right now and to understand where you're trying to go. If you don't have anything to fall back on or know your history, you're just lost in the wilderness. And so that's another thing that I see positive about all of this. These people are to me, they're the younger generation. Anybody under 60 is young. The younger generation, they're becoming more aware, and they're doing something about it.
Yes, and I think that's good, as long as, like we were talking through our family podcast, what we notice is things, a lot of times uprisings happen and then they die down, and they happen and die down. But we have seen some change in this short amount of time. I think people are listening, and I think that, things will take a long time to actually for us to see it make the big difference. But small incremental changes nonetheless are positive, and that's good. So as long as, we can keep doing this and seeing change, then it's all worth it.
And what I've also noticed with the Black Lives Matter, they're not going just after non-whites who aren't doing right.
Right.
They're going, non-whites. No, they're not going after the non-minorities who aren't doing right. They're going after the non-whites who aren't doing right. And they said, you aren't doing your job and we don't need you.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need this. We don't need that. So they're not just looking at one race.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
they're looking at
big.
everybody who's
Right.
not
It's
doing what they're
big.
supposed to do. And
And I
that's
think,
what I like.
right. And so even though it is identified as Black Lives Matter, there
Mhm.
is they're speaking to, like you say, everyone and every issue.
Right.
It's only identified as the Black Lives Matter for several reasons. One that we brought out in the last podcast is that everything seems to be falling up under that umbrella of the Black Lives
Mhm.
Matter, simply
Right.
because we are, as a race, are more affected by it versus
Mhm.
any of the others, but not that
Right.
the others aren't affected at all. So having an understanding of what it means and what the whole movement is about is important. And then, doing your part. So as long as
And
everyone does their part and pay attention and, keep this to the forefront, then change is going to come.
now the one thing I hope this is not a moment, it's a movement.
Right.
And because it's a movement and you're saying things and you want things, I am praying that these young people vote. You know, your
Yes.
vote does count.
Yes.
And if you don't vote, all this that you're doing is for nothing. You have to vote the bad seeds out and put the better seeds in. And if the better seeds don't do right, vote them out and put somebody else in who's going to do right by everybody, not just one segment, but everybody.
Well, my
And
18-year-old great niece testified that she registered and she will be voting along with her friends. They are all those who she just graduated from high school, and they all
good.
vowed that they will be at the polls.
Good. And if you're too afraid to go to the polls, I'm sure you can do absentee ballot unless
Right.
they're going to say you can't. And I'm listening to some of the people in our generation who are admitting, I'm going to vote for the first time. Wait a minute. If you're getting ready to vote for the first time, you didn't even vote for Barack Obama. Are you kidding me?
Right.
And so they're going to vote. And your vote does count. It may not be the best, but you don't go down the rabbit hole because you don't like somebody what they did 30 years ago,
Right.
especially when we asked them to do what they did. You know, you
Yes.
got to keep working at it, keep working at it, keep working at it. And it's not going to be perfect, but you have to sit down and don't do name recognition. Do your research and get the best candidate who will help you out and look out for you. Just like when you go to the doctor, I don't care what nationality you are or where you came from, as long as you are in my corner, gonna take care of me and do right by me. Now, if you're not gonna do right by me, I don't care who you are. I don't want to be bothered with you.
Yeah.
And that's what I look at. So the same thing with the candidates, same thing with everybody who's saying that they want your business. You're not looking out for me, I'll go someplace else.
Okay. Well, Michele, I'd like to thank you for your views and opinions as always, and for being open and sharing your time held, I want to say, as being held hostage, as COVID
Yes.
had done for all of us. And we pray
Mhm.
that everyone in your family recovers well. I know it's been a long road for you, and this too shall pass. You one day look back on this and wonder how you survived. But of course, we all know how we survive these things and
Yes,
keeping
as we
faith.
get older, we'll say, I'm not smart because I'm just smart. It's because I've been through something, something.
Right.
And this will be the something, something.
Yes, because you truly have been tested, and I commend you
Whew.
for holding up to it. It's been a couple of years, so
Oh, yeah.
uh,
Rough.
but it will come to an end soon, and you'll be singing praises. Not that you
Yes,
are
I will.
already, but you'll be singing louder.
And I won't have to worry about not paying my bills, hopefully. Okay, then.
Okay, and thank you very much, and talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you. Have a good
Oh,
evening.
okay.
Bye bye.